The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, it's summertime in Vancouver, and everything is beautiful. But all I can think about is the Vancouver Canucks. Who's gonna make the opening night roster? Can Petey bounce back? Can Adam Foote coach this team back to the playoffs? Is Tom Willander ready for the NHL? Can Demko stay healthy? So instead of going outside and enjoying the great outdoors, I'm gonna do what any reasonable fan would do. I'm locking myself inside and playing NHL 25's franchise mode until I win the Stanley Cup with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, I don't usually make this kind of content, and don't worry, real Canucks coverage is coming soon, but first, I've got a cup to win.
Previously on Nuckhead.
I took over this team on July 9th, so any real-life trades or signings made after that date won't be reflected in this series. I've got to go over a couple rules that I've given myself. Rule number 1, I'm not allowed to trade any of the Canucks core players prior to winning the Stanley Cup. And rule number 2, I have to bring in someone with 0 NHL head coaching experience to lead the team. So after a long, thorough search, I found our guy. Meet Jason Horton. He thinks he can get this team back to the playoffs. Let's him up to the trade deadline and see where we're at. After 64 games, the Canucks have a record of 34, 25, and 5. Hughes is leading the team in points with 66. Before we jump into the deadline, we need to figure out what we're going to do with some of these expiring contracts. Evander Kane doesn't want an extension, so we're not going to give him one, but I do want to keep him around as a rental for the playoffs. Derek Forbort, same thing. Not planning to re-sign him, but we do want to keep him around for the postseason. As for Teddy Bluger, I do think it's time for him to go. If we can trade him at the deadline and bring in another center who can play in the top 9, ideally with term, I think we should do it. Then there's Kiefer Sherwood. He doesn't want an extension, but I don't care. He's a heart and soul guy. We need him on this team. I don't care if we have to overpay him. So I offered him exactly what he asked for, a 3-year deal worth $3.9 million per season, and I even threw in a modified no-trade clause as a sweetener, and thankfully he accepted. All right, now let's enter the trade deadline and see what's available. Ooh, Jake Evans. He's a right-handed center with term signed to a fantastic contract we can afford once we move Bluger. We don't have too much time to think about this. Trades are being made right now and he could be gone if we wait too long, so we gotta move quick. Let's put Bluger on the block and see who wants him. All right, we got 2 offers. Colorado's offering a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick, both in the 2027 draft, and then Florida is offering the same thing. So, I guess it'd be smartest to send him to a team in the Eastern Conference, so that's what we'll do. See you later, Bloogie man. Have fun in Florida. Okay, let's go get Evans. Now, unfortunately, the Canadians are really only interested in our draft picks, which means we're going to have to part ways with a 1st-rounder if we want to get this guy. I know I could probably muster up some concoction of 2nd and 3rd-round picks to get him, but I just don't think that's realistic. He's a top 9 right-handed center signed to an incredibly team-friendly contract that has 4 more years left on it. We're going to have to give up a 1st. However, the 2026 draft class is stacked, and I don't want to miss out on that, so even though it's a little risky, I'm going to offer our 1st-round pick in next year's draft. I might be fleecing myself here, but whatever. They accepted. We got Jake Evans. Some other notable trade deadline moves around the league were the Blues trading Pius Suter to the Jets, the Knights trading William Karlsson to the Penguins, the Canadiens traded Patrick Laine to the Flames, and then they traded Mike Matheson and Alexander Carrier to the Jets in exchange for Braden Yager. Wow. Anyway, that's it for the deadline. Here's what the new forward lines look like with Jake Evans slotted in the 3C spot. I'm also going to move Mancini up to a full-time player and use Forbort as a 7th D. All right, let's sim the final 18 games of the season and see how we do. All right, it's the end of the season and our head coach Jason Horton wants to chat. Fingers crossed it's not him telling us he wants to leave like Tocchet did last year. Oh, we made the playoffs. Hell yeah. And our 1st-round opponent is Mitch Marner's Vegas Golden Knights. Great. It's not going to be easy, but I will say, taking a look at their lines, they're a very top-heavy team. Their top 6 is terrifying, but their bottom 6 is kind of laughable. They're really missing William Karlsson. And without Alex Pietrangelo, their back end doesn't scare me too much either. Their goaltending is fine, but honestly, I think we can beat this team. But before we start simming the playoffs, let's take a quick look at our year-end stats. In their first season with me at the helm, the Vancouver Canucks finished 3rd in the Pacific Division with a record of 42, 33, and 7, made the playoffs, had a top 10 power play and a top 5 penalty kill. Hughes led the team with 83 points. Besser hit a career high in goals with 43. Petey scored at a point per game pace. Hedl finished with 55 points in his first year as a second-line center. Evander Kane hit 30 goals for the first time since 2019. Big Hog scored 29 times, which, if he did that in real life, my vocal cords would be torn to shreds. However, the NHL team's success did not translate to the AHL. The Abbotsford Canucks had an abysmal season. They finished second last in the entire league with a record of 30, 43, and 9. So that's something I'm going to have to address in the offseason, but that's for later. Let's see if we can make it out of the first round. We took Game 1 thanks to a double overtime game-winning goal from Brock Besser and an insane 45-save performance from Thatcher Demko. Game 2 was a different story though. Despite a 5-point performance from Big Hog, we got thumped 6-5, tying the series at 1-1. Luckily, Demko snapped back to form in Game 3. He stopped 44 of the 47 shots he faced in a 4-3 overtime win, and the game-winning goal was scored by none other than Quinn Hughes. Game 4 also needed extra time, but unfortunately it was Vegas coming out on top this time. Series tied 2-2. Then in Game 5, our star players were nowhere to be found. Drew O'Connor was the only Canuck to find the back of the net. We lost 3-1 and we're now one loss away from elimination. And in that elimination game, we got blown out. The Golden Knights won the series and moved on to round 2. Philip Hedl actually led the team in postseason points with 2 goals and 6 assists in 6 games. Big Hog had a good showing, so did Hughes, Hronik, and Besser. Petey was all right. I mean, he did have 6 points in 6 games, which is good, but he only scored 1 goal, which is not so good. We're going to need a little more from him next season if we want to do any real damage. But we're going to need a lot more from Jake Evans, Kiefer Sherwood, and Dakota Joshua. All 3 of them absolutely stunk. They had no goals, no assists, no points. They were defensive liabilities. They sucked. However, there is a faint silver lining here. We weren't the only team that lost to Vegas. In fact, the Golden Knights beat everyone, even Florida. They crushed the Panthers' dreams of a 3-peat and won the Stanley Cup in 6 games. Jack Eichel won the Conn Smythe, Adam Fox won the Norris, Barkov took home both the Art Ross and the Hart trophies, Crosby won the Selke, Blackwood won the Vezina, Misa won the Calder, and our guy Jason Horton won the Jack Adams Trophy, also known as Coach of the Year. Nice. And you know who won Worst Coach of the Year? Everyone down in Abbotsford, so I fired them all. Even Adam Hui. Thank you to these wonderful knuckheads for supporting what I do by clicking the join button and becoming channel members. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.